everybody. Eric Meyer. I'm the Assistant Director of Education at the Fleet Science Center and the project lead for the San Diego STEM Ecosystems Central Project Office at the Fleet.
I'm Maura Conley. I am the Community Initiatives Coordinator at the Fleet Science Center. And my job is largely to support our efforts with the STEM ecosystem, as well as our neighborhood networks that are part of it as well.
Hello, my name is Yanette Lopez, Community Engagement Manager here at the Fleet Science Center, also in support of the STEM ecosystem, more so on the neighborhood networks, which are community focused and bringing together our neighborhood efforts with our working group efforts.
Efforts in San Diego around an ecosystem and around community engagement, at least in my knowledge of it, the Fleet Science Center started doing some of that as a result of our director's participation in the Noise Leadership Foundation piece. We started by doing community listening around communities around San Diego County. And from that, we're looking to work with communities to help them reach their aspirations through STEM learning. So what the Fleet could do to contribute to the community's aspirations around STEM learning. It started off with a series of community events. There's a small neighborhood near where we're at, actually, that had an interest in a free STEM event in the community every week. That was quickly dubbed 52 Weeks of Science. And it went on for several years in that community of the Fleet working with partners at the library, at a local college institute, working with some other out-of-school time partners, and working with the local scientific community and business community to highlight the science that was happening in and around the community. After that got going, we, at the same time, I guess, we also took on the mantle of the Central Project Office and started to expand the work into the working groups of the San Diego STEM ecosystem, and also to concentrate on some neighborhoods. We say neighborhoods because it's alliterative, but it's communities around San Diego County. We wrote our ecosystem as a countywide effort, but it's a big county, and doing effort all over the place all at once is just an insurmountable thing, at least in my opinion. So what we decided to do was to work on building out and working together with neighborhood networks to have mini ecosystems there that those groups would be looking at the state of STEM and the aspirations of the community together, and figure out what they could do to help move that needle in the community.
Just to add to what Eric is mentioning, I think the neighborhood networks focusing on community bring together STEM providers and non-STEM providers, and through that there's a diversity in experience as well as knowledge of things that are happening in the community that perhaps other partners might not be informed about, and kind of that cross-pollination between initiatives and finding synergy within the work, perhaps through what the libraries are doing, perhaps through what community-based organizations are doing, and also being able to kind of keep an ear to the ground to needs that are happening, needs that are emerging in a real-time time frame, I guess, which helps the group respond to needs pretty quickly, or at least strategize on how to connect to those needs as they're surfacing. Yeah, I think about the diverse partners that do form part of these groups and how they leverage their own constituents, their own clients, their own demographics to help us attend to those needs. I think about our group in San Isidro who one of the district staff is able to join our group and help us facilitate the communication with parents, students, and teachers, and how in lending communication with them, we're able to perhaps survey and ask questions related to what their STEM aspirations might be. And as opposed to going and searching for someone, knocking on doors of who might be able to share out this survey or help us communicate with teachers, help us communicate with parents, and that slowing down the process. Folks bring to the table their resources and are very candid about what they can put forth towards the group. Oftentimes, since the groups are not just schools or just libraries, or they're community members themselves that are very interested, we're able to get the firsthand experience of what they're seeing in the community, especially during this time of a lot of uncertainty, where things change every day. Partners that join our groups are able to share what they know and kind of collectively put together this puzzle of what is happening, and facilitate the communication within each other as to how to get to an understanding. I think also partners often serve the community themselves, and they're able to, through those interactions, take note of what folks are saying to them and bring that to the group. Additionally, we're always building in those opportunities to explore listening, even if the group is already focused in a particular project or carrying out a particular initiative or working together collaboratively on a project. We're always building in those opportunities to perhaps do a focus group, or perhaps share it out with community and get their feedback on it, or even attend to the needs as a project is in the iteration stage.
Yeah, like Yannette mentioned, having the right partners at the table can make it very easy to have a good grasp on what the community needs are at that time. Other listening methods we've tried is attending other meetings or sessions where we know that other organizations are hosting listening opportunities. We can just have a seat at those and see what we can learn from other people. We also, if we don't have the right partners at the table, doing some recruitment or just hosting a listening session ourselves. So finding the right stakeholders to invite somewhere to hear what they have to say and coming up with a list of questions that is pertinent to them. We've also, since a lot of our work has gone remote recently, we've utilized surveys, we've utilized social media, whatever the group can come together and come up with themselves, because they are the ones who know their community best. So we really let them kind of take the lead on who should we be talking to and where are opportunities to listen.
Time and presence and follow through, I guess. We are there. We continue to meet with folks. We continue to show up for the events that others are leading. And we try and make sure that we provide the things that we said that we're going to provide. Sometimes it's a little frustrating for us when we can't do what we had hoped to do, or we're asking other people to do. But being honest and forthright about those things, I think, is also important.
Just to piggyback off of Eric's response, I think also keeping track of what folks share and keeping that in the back of our minds, maybe as a back burner conversation or a topic, something that folks suggest, and keeping that present. Because oftentimes when folks call for feedback and nothing gets done with it, perhaps there might not be that inclination to participate or provide feedback again. But oftentimes we're keeping track of what folks share, maybe within our meeting minutes or in our debriefs, and keeping that present. So when the opportunity is ripe to perhaps explore what folks had shared in the past, we can pull that to the forefront and build off of it or follow up. Just like Eric mentioned, I think with trust, it's showing up when needed, and being able to be reciprocal with our partners and reciprocal with the community, and demonstrate that our intentions are there, and being authentic in that way.
Yeah, and I agree. Actions speak far louder than words in this case. But one thing we do try to do, especially at the beginning, is make it clear that we are there to support the community. We're not there to lead. We're not there with a secret Fleet Science Center agenda. And so always putting the community first and finding community leaders to lead our neighborhood groups. So it's not just us being the leaders all the time. So really making space for other voices and just, yeah, hammering in that we're here for the community. This is supposed to be for the community, by the community, and we are just a backbone support system.
I think about some of the challenges that we face is often that finding the correct folks to be able to connect with, to invite them to these meetings, because we are working with organizations that are STEM providers, non-STEM providers, serving the broader community, community-based organizations, oftentimes being able to identify who is the best fit to attend the meetings. We often talk about in our debriefs about the decision makers and the doers, and almost these groups requiring a good mix of both from organizations in order to really inform perhaps the initiative at hand, or how the community wants to lead with those STEM learning opportunities. So oftentimes it is finding the person who might be the right fit. And sometimes there might be folks coming on board that are very much interested, but just as a result of having to pivot during the pandemic, or ebbs and flow with turnover, or people getting moving to another organization, that sometimes bringing folks up to speed does kind of affect the pace of, let's say, a project. So that those tend to be some of the challenges that we've seen, including folks pivoting during the pandemic and maybe having previously been really involved, but then all of a sudden not being able to, just as a result of work responsibilities and new demands, or shifting to serving basic needs at a time where a lot of folks need it. So kind of STEM taking a pause from efforts related to STEM.
Mm-hmm. Another challenge at times, especially at the beginning, is getting the group to figure out what they want to do together. So how I mentioned, it's for the community, by the community, that is supposed to be an asset, but sometimes they come together and are looking for leadership, and they want direction, and we are not there to give it to them because it takes time to listen and to learn what the community needs. But sometimes partners struggle with that in between stage of what should we be doing and how can we take action and feel like we're making progress and feel like we're having an impact. So a challenge is really keeping folks hooked and invested during those ambiguity stages, and until we can really get our feet on the ground and have a good understanding of what we want to do and get through that brainstorming stage.
When we talk about our working groups in lots of ways as communities of practice, these are often the partners across education and industry that have a vested interest in STEM education. So more helps focus those folks and keep them running along as smoothly as possible too. But in lots of ways, it's very similar to the neighborhoods. That being said, one of the things that we are trying to identify with those groups, what are the points of overlap? How can our work together be collaborative? So if you have a vested interest in one thing happening, there's a good chance that someone else has a likelihood of something else wanting the same thing together. And so can you combine those efforts instead of having two separate efforts that are uninformed by each other, just putting those together? Thinking about those, sometimes we can think about how can we do those sorts of things with the resources that already exist. We don't need extra resources for those because people maybe already had fundraised or had budget to do those things, and now they're just doing it together with someone else. Then we can go beyond that and say, what can we do with a little bit of extra money, or what can we do with a lot of extra money? A lot is a relative, and anyway. But getting the folks to sort of dream as to what they could do, and then thinking about what they can actually do without having all of the components that we would love to have in the long-term piece of it. As the Central Project Office, we've applied for federal funding support, largely because it's longer term funds. We can do some bigger things with it. Robust evaluation is part of that. Good research components is part of that. But we haven't been able to get those. So we go along as best we can with what we have. And so this group has been doing, capturing of data. We do on a regular basis capture data relative to trust, leadership, and connectivity. We identify those as we're seeing them in the groups and capture them for ourselves in the hopes at some point we can look at that data and evaluate it for trends, things that are hallmarks for those things happening, because we think that they are essential to the process. And that's, our thing as the Central Project Office to sort of help shepherd all that along. Doesn't necessarily mean anything to what's happening on the ground as far as the services that are provided for children and the rest of the community. Yeah, absolutely. It's nothing fancy. Although we did for the first time this year survey partners in the ecosystem in every working group and neighborhood network to ask about their experiences relative to what they've been doing as a collective in the last year. Not only what they could see that what they had ideas about working better, but also the value of it to them. And we hope to continue that because it is really something that can help point the way towards the future. And again, we can share with other people to say, this is what people are doing with this. This is why this is important. Funding the networking and relationship building piece is always the biggest challenge, but not always the biggest one, but it's a big one.
I have a quick anecdote. Not so long ago, maybe 2 weeks or so ago, we were at a Southeast Science and Art Expo. It was a community event being hosted by one of our partners that's part of the neighborhood network, as well as kind of a blended working group focused on expanding access to STEM learning opportunities. So it's a unique group. So there's an event hosted, lots of partners there tabling, focused on STEM and art. But a family approached the table, noticing San Diego STEM ecosystem on our tablecloth, and had questions about potential coding and programming opportunities in San Diego, and I think identified with STEM that was printed on there, and just started engaging. They mentioned that they were new to the United States, had just moved to Southeast San Diego from Baja California, Mexico, and were looking to support their son through coding because he was doing really well in Baja, and were worried about him not continuing his passion and not being able to foster that support now that they had moved. He's the student is doing very well representing his state in Mexico and earning himself a private school scholarship, but being able to make those connections and through the ecosystem identify partners that could quickly respond to his interest and support his passions and continue to foster that, I think was something that just set up a light bulb of why connecting these efforts to community is so important, because you really are able to kind of overlap those interests, the resources, and draw the connection. So I think that really impacted me, and it's just a success story of working together, how you're able to do more collectively than alone.
One of my favorite initiatives that one of our working group has come up with is called Daily Doses of STEM. And our early childhood group during the pandemic, when parents were at home with their kids all day long, they decided to focus on supporting parents and caregivers. So we started doing a social media campaign where once a week we would put out a daily dose of STEM, which is something really small that they can incorporate into the activities they're already doing, such as sort your snacks or count the socks when doing laundry. And from that small campaign, we then realized we could make a handout for it. So we turned that resource into another resource that we can get into the hands of other providers. We then had a partner join the group who asked, would we like to translate this in Spanish? And we said, heck yeah, we would love to do that. We've been wanting to do that, but didn't have the capability for a while. So now we're doing them in Spanish as well. And then most recently, we had another partner with the idea of turning the daily doses into a bingo card. And so we just launched our back to school STEMtember campaign, and we have bingo cards online. Our libraries are partnering with us to have bingo cards at all of the library branches. And we're just encouraging parents, teachers, anyone who wants to do it to fill out a bingo card, do 4 activities of STEM, share it with us online, and then they can win a prize from one of our partners. So just like a really great instance where so many partners were involved in different ways, and we created a resource, and then we've turned that resource into several other resources. So just making sure we're really making the most of what we're doing, and our efforts are being utilized and increase in access to STEM.
One of the things that was really illustrative to me, and I think amazing success through this whole period, this pandemic, that these groups coming together allowed them to be nimble and responsive very quickly to the needs identified by communities. And we were able to spread those sort of things quickly around, for everything from synchronous and asynchronous learning to utilizing the school lunch pickups for materials pickup for students, to recently the CARES Act provided funding to the local districts for summer learning, and many of the partners got together and collaborated in interesting ways. Some partners had space, other partners had expertise. We were able to put those folks together and provide summer learning opportunities for kids using CARES Act funding in the local community, at the schools or next to the schools where summer experiences are happening for kids, so they could have longer experiences during the day with trusted community partners. So all of those things really worked as a collaborative effort that were made much easier because these groups had been coming together and had developed the trusted connectivity and relationships that are a part of this stuff.